Okay, good morning, Enric. Thank you for accepting my invitation for this conversation. This is a webinar that we host under the project. It's an Erasmus Plus project called FOReSiGHT that is dealing with intelligent automation and digital transformation. It's a project addressing students from Romania, from Italy, from Germany, and from Croatia. They've been engaged in the last couple of years in different exercises and practices. And as we approach the end of the project, we want to share with them through a series of seminars to zoom in on different topics. Now, both you and I come from FOReSiGHT, and I will, of course, allow you to present your work in more detail. But just to announce that while we engage with these topics of automation, digital transformation, we are, of course, not experts in these fields, but we come from FOReSiGHT, and we hope to be able to bring some valuable instruments and tools in exploring the future and how some of these technological disruptions might play out. And even if we don't know with precision, we are not making predictions about the future, but we invite for a more structured conversation about futures. So that being said, please, Enric, tell me a bit about yourself. What kind of work you do? Why did you get into this kind of work? Please.
Okay. Should I share
Yes.
This? Yeah. Like, I don't know if I'm yes. I don't know if I'm sharing completely. I'm sorry. But...
Excellent.
Okay.
I see your screen
yes.
now. Yes.
Okay. It's okay? No? Yes.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. First, thank you very much for inviting me to join you. Yes. I'll try to do my best because, as I told you, I'm not an expert on this, but I thought that it would be very interesting to exchange our points of view and our findings, the insights we found in our respective research. And yes, you said, well, I have been working in FOReSiGHT for like 20 years now. Originally, people used to ask me, how did you get into FOReSiGHT? And it's a long story because when I was in the high school, I wanted to be an artist and an architect, and I wanted to study arts or architecture. But I moved to business administration first, and then sociology, and now when I look backwards, I can see that I always was interested in the future, you know. For example, I still love architecture because, I mean, this idea of developing a design, or, you know, like making a draft of something that is still doesn't exist, but it will be something in the future, you know. Drafting ideas this is something I love, while studying sociology, yes, my first contact with something like future-oriented was urban sociology. I started with urban planning, and this was very interesting for me because it was like coming back to the architecture. You know, that was my very first love, and then I studied all the utopian thinking concerning the future of the cities and everything. And at the same time, I was working with a teacher of mine in mathematical modeling and prediction. So that was, and because we were working with public opinion, you know, which is about identifying expectancies of the people about the future, or what they hope, what are the hopes, the fears, and everything. Sometimes I say that for me, being a FOReSiGHT or futurist and a sociologist is the same thing, no? Because I don't know any sociologist, I mean, the originary ones, you know, who was not worried about the future. So, this is the way I started with future studies. Also because one of my professors was in the core group of the future studies founders, you know, with Eleonora Massini and Johan Galtung and Peter and everything. So he asked me to help him to keep this future studies thing in the university, you know, and this is what I did. And yes, I'm a professor at the University of Alicante, which is a small one. It's here, a small Mediterranean city. And I'm teaching social change and communication and participatory FOReSiGHT and social innovation. I'm teaching at the School of Economics and also the grade in advertising and the master on social innovation.
So these are exploratory scenarios as announced, meaning, just to translate a bit for the non-FOReSiGHT audience, they are not normative in the sense that they don't say something is desirable and we should work towards achieving, but they are exploratory in the sense that they look at some of the technological scientific trends and capabilities, and in the scenario we play them out and we look at the consequences, social, economic, ecological, and we say if we weren't to do anything, if we didn't have any agency and these would just play out as they are, this is how the world might look like. Whereas for a normative scenario, you say, no, we see where this is going and we intervene here and here, and we try to gear it towards what we consider to be desirable or acceptable and so on. So this is just, you know, a clarification for our audience.
I would like to say that I love this word exploratory, you know. I like to put emphasis on this because we are, I mean, the futurists or the people doing FOReSiGHT, we should be, or we are explorers, because we don't know what we are going to find sometimes, you know. And this is the reason why, you know, I have been working with some research centers of climate change, and it was very challenging and interesting, and I love them. But we had different approaches because they were more activists, like, no, this is the right road, you know. And for me, like,
with activists it's tricky, yeah.
I was more like, I told them that they were logging like, this is funny. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not an activist like you. I'm an analyst, so I need to understand. Maybe I agree with you at personal level, but let's explore. Let's see what plausible future we can, you know. So.
Yeah, you're right. There can be a lot of resistance. I can imagine, and not only from activist groups. So I will present 12 very short images, but I clustered them in 3 in a way. Some scenarios talk about we have a body, we still are made of flesh and blood. How can we upgrade and improve our capabilities of different physiological processes or cognitive, but it's still people living embodied, similar to what we call humans today. The second category is what if we extended human capabilities by tweaking the biological with some technological? So we bring in sensors, exoskeletons, different kind of implants, and this is already emerging, right, of human and technology, more intimate merging. And the third category that we explored was, in order to improve or to be able to treat, to fix, to upgrade humans, we will deal a lot with what we call simulations or digital twins of the body, of the brain. We will have more advanced models of how we function mentally and physically, and we will be able to test things on the model before testing it on humans, and so on and so forth. So in a way, the third one looks at how we create better and better models, hoping that they will help us upgrade ourselves. But let's start with the first one. So we still live in the body. We are made of flesh and blood.
I have a question, Bianca, because I was checking this. I have been checking the link you sent me with the scenarios, and I think this can be interesting for the students attending this conversation, because maybe for some of them or many of them this is new. I mean, future studies, FOReSiGHT, so. Because I have realized that you have been working with 3 different types of scenarios. So, but you have more scenarios, no? Like inside this.
Yeah.
For example, I think this is interesting because, for example, I'm more old school. I used to work like with a probable, like disruptive, and then referable or something like this. And I just wanted to outline this because if any student or researcher is starting with FOReSiGHT and goes to check what information it's available about future scenarios, you can find a lot of different alternatives, no? I mean, and this is it's like very shocking, because our educational system is like this, you know? So having different ways of approaching scenarios can be a bit shocking for some students. It happens to me, you know? So
yeah. And in the previous experience with presenting this work on transhumanism, the reactions can be quite strong and vehement in opposing, as if you present them as a lobbyist. We're not lobbying for this kind of futures. We're just saying they're plausible, since, to use your words, they're not necessarily desirable, or not everything in them is beneficial, but they're plausible if we look at how the technology is playing out. So in this first category of enhancing embodied experiences, we discussed a few things. This scenario, called Design Your Senses, talks about how the human perception and senses is limited to our olfactory, tasting, visual, and so on, the senses we all have. But it is possible, and this is not even that far away of a future, to extend the spectrum of sensorial capabilities we have. You can be able, for example, to sense the magnetic poles, or to be able to do echolocation like the bats and the dolphins are doing, or to see infrared, expand, either going beyond or beneath our spectrum of vision, hearing, and so on. Now, why would this be relevant? Besides very exotic people who are doing implants and are trying to be eccentric and very exploratory, this, we think, might change a lot of some professional areas where the sensory capacity of the professional is very important. If you think about the military, about rescue operations, for example, when you go after a fire or after an earthquake, being able to sense in an extraordinary way by means of visual, acoustic, but also magnetic reception would transform a few professions radically. And it would be a pressure for these professionals to have super capabilities in terms of perceptions. So this is Design Your Senses. Yes, go on.
Yes, when I was reading yesterday these scenarios, it reminded me to, I don't know if it's familiar to you, this neuroscientist is British. The name is Adil Seth.
Adil Seth, yeah, we have it invited at the workshop, yeah.
Because I read something about what he says about that. Again, was something like, oh wow, this is interesting, because I'm very interested in social construction of reality, but I don't know so much at individual level, you know, because I'm not a psychologist or neurologist or something. But I was reading his writing, and he was explaining that not everybody is all of us. I mean, for example, some people in a meeting, we are perceiving reality the same way. because
course,
at the end of the day, everything is about chemical processes and everything. So we have a perception that comes from the inside out also. No, and it made me to think like, oh wow, because we used to talk in going for general point of views, but yeah, this is very interesting because now we have all these new ways of devices
enhancing and extending the spectrum of sensorial capacities, indeed.
It's like
sorry, go on.
Not everybody's feeling pain the same way,
That's also true.
But no physically, nor emotionally. So, for example, this is very interesting, how technology can shape this. So I like it a lot. Thank you.
And it's also, since you mentioned pain, the experience of pain is one thing, physical pain, but not everybody suffers to the same extent because of their pain. Not everyone with the same kind of wound would suffer the same way. So there is an added layer of psychological approach towards pain that changes your experience altogether. Some people are fighting through it, some get very demoralized because of physical pain, and that changes a lot their experience of life, so to say. This second one you might like, or I'm assuming, because it discusses a bit on expanding consciousness through brain stimulation and the use of psychedelics even, which is not new in any way. Of course, we know of older generations who have experienced a lot with psychedelics to expand their individual perception, but also their sense of unity with nature, unity with the humankind. So this whole history of psychedelics teaches us a lot about how we can have access to different states of consciousness that we cannot otherwise access very easily. So if these were made in a more controlled manner, maybe microdosing combined with some brain stimulation with sensors, it could be an opportunity for mainstream population to experience different states of consciousness, to explore and heal trauma, anxiety, depression, but also more luminous things such as our unity with all living things, our place in the universe. Humanity at this point, many of us are not engaging with deep philosophical questions. Who am I? Who are we? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to share life with the trees and the animals? We are very pragmatic, and these sorts of experiences might open a new way of exploration, a more empathetic, oriented towards healing and caring, and maybe even a sort of new spirituality. Please.
Yeah, this is very interesting because the first, as I told you, I'm teaching social change and communication, students of communication and advertising, and the first block is about the social construction of reality. It's like, look how powerful are you, because your work is about, you are using audio visuals and everything, and you're using neuromarketing to shape people's perception about everything, and of course we are exploring these technologies, new technologies, shaping perception. And I used to tell them that virtual reality is not that far from, drugs, that the Indian Americans, they used to take natural drugs for connecting with nature, or talking with God. That this is ancient,
we didn't invent this at all. It's rather indigenous practice. But we will combine it with some sort of technology, with monitoring, with sensors, because that's what technology does. But essentially, it's been there before.
And this leads us to a discussion that I think is core too. It's a more philosophical one, which is about it's like maybe human beings. I mean, we are animals, we are intelligent, but maybe we are not we have never been totally happy with ourselves. So we need to escape, somehow of our reality, of
Our condition. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the reason why of this toxic behavior, for moving to a different place for a while. And and I think this road to transhumanism it's about this love and hate relationship with ourselves,
Yeah, with ourselves. Yeah. Very true. I totally resonate with this. And because it's about our love and hate relationships with ourselves, I think it will provoke us and challenge us to reconsider some of the things, as in what gives meaning to our life, what does it mean to be happy, even successful. It invites for a bit of a demystifying of some of the things and rediscussing very fundamental things about being human.
Yeah, and redefining age, gender or sex, everything, it's like what this German journalist, this liberation from human nature. This is the last utopic stage. It's like we are superior intelligence, so we can even get independent or become independent from our human nature. It's like biology, folks.
Yeah.
If I feel like a woman, I want to be a woman, I can make this decision. This kind of discussions are now in the agenda, public agenda, for example, or I don't want to be old. I'm 80 years old, but I feel like 40. I remember, I don't know, a guy in which country that he was denouncing.
He changed his age his age.
Yeah, because if you can choose your sex or gender, you can put hair on your head. You can reverse everything that nature is doing to you. It's the way it's affecting, or this predetermination of nature and the biology is like. So I think this is very.
I remember one of the transhumanist authors, it doesn't even matter. The quote stuck to me. He said that, biology is always humiliating us by imposing limitations on our capabilities. And the ultimate humiliation is our death. Yeah, if you believe in transhumanist ambitions, you think that biology is just fucking around with you and you need to fight back.
It's like nature is messing with you all your life, and at the end you die.
And then at the end you die. Yeah, life is a bitch, and at the end you die. Extra twinkle in the wrinkle. I was trying to be a bit poetic here, but it discusses about how through molecular therapies, there are different schools of medicine working on this, but it is about prolongation of human life, ultimately. This particular scenario discusses about telomerase therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with this, how our chromosomes have some endings, like little caps at the end, and with age, they become smaller and smaller. And this is very correlated with the aging of our cells in our body. Anyway, a lot of science goes behind this to say if we could tweak the length and the duration of this, the length of these telomeres at the end of our chromosomes, studies show that we might increase the lifespan of all our cells in the body. And there are other technologies working towards it. It's too technical to enter, but the discussion in this case would be how life looks like when you're living. 120 years would be the new normal, as opposed to 75 or 80. What's the mean average for Europeans, I think, at least in lifespan. So what does life looks like? How does your planning of your family, of your career, your hobbies change if you're living 120. Not to mention that other transhumanists, of course, are going further in dreaming, and they experience with the cryogeny and the freezing up their body. That's a different component. But if we were to live over 120 or around that age, the whole fabric of society would change. Our families would look very different. The way we trust that we have a lot of time to do this and that and follow our dreams would change, for better and for worse. Some would say that because we have a limitation, and of course our limitation grew anyway. People used to die in 40s before antibiotics and so on. So we live quite a lot anyway. But add another 50% of your lifespan to this. How will your dreams be affected? What kind of courage will you have to face the world and so on? So this invites to a debate that is very sociological and anthropological about if you have an end to your life and you kind of know, well, I'm in my 50s now, how much do I have left, so to say? But then if you're in your 50s now and you know you have another 50 going, boom, it's a different attitude. You're in the prime of your life in your 50s. So yeah, but of course the science behind it is not necessarily it's controversial, but the human body is so complex that the behavior of cells that you can observe and how they age slowly, it might play out very differently when you discuss a whole organism. So it's still quite, even if they appear in the news, different kinds of experiments, the more serious science is very reluctant to promising radical extension of life.
Yeah, and Bianca, you say that this is a anthropological and sociological issue, but also, of course, again, moral, philosophical, but also political, because and economical, because not everybody. This is another big question. Is like it's in the future. Some people, gurus or something, they say in the future you can beat death. I mean, or you will be able to.
Yeah.
Beat death, but it's like, hello, but all of us, or depending on your.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, or it's like, or if something happens, you know, this guy from Virgin or the guy from Twitter, no, Elon Musk. They are exploring like how to move to, but it's all of us, or
we are here on this heated planet.
This is I think this is it's not still in the public agenda, but I think that we will.
And there would be great inequalities with this prolongation of life and augmentation of any capability. It will divide even more the poor, the vulnerable, and the powerful. So it is highly problematic in that regard.
Some different coexisting process, like for example, aging population in Europe, but in India it's very young.
Youthful,
and in Latin America it's not that young, but it's still younger than in Europe. And we have this population growing in some places, but in others. You know, this was in the limits of growth, and the report to the Club of Rome in the 70s. I mean, it's not something new. So it's like 50 years later, we have. That was a good prediction. I mean, they were right. And that all this mixed with this increasing polarization, economic polarization, like 1% of the people in the world, they have all the wealth.
And especially in politics, even currently, with some notable exceptions, the sector of politicians tend to be senior citizens, predominantly male in many countries. And if this continues, then power will be concentrated in the hands of the more senior citizens, but this time senior meaning in their 100th year of life. The way their availability to engage with people in their 20 and 30 will probably collapse even more. I mean, someone who is 100, who believes they have a lot of experience, they've lived through a century, very little fresh blood might have access into politics, into economic arena, into business, because age will be seen probably as a lot of experience, and in your 30 you will be considered an embryo, very immature.
Well,
Yeah.
In the process, yeah.
And the last one in this category of speaking about the body stuff, this one is called Let There Be Life, and discusses another molecular biology breakthrough or progress towards this breakthrough. I don't know if you are familiar with this, but it's been managed to transform somatic cells, so skin cells, anywhere from the body. You can program them to become pluripotent stem cells, like the embryonic cells, and then those ones, because those have the capability to transform, you can program them to become sexual cells, like gametes. So starting with skin cells, you make them become stem cells, and then you program them to become sex cells. It's a huge transformation, which would mean that the whole reproduction aspect of our human lives will not depend so much on our gametes, on the sexual capabilities of fertility and so on, but rather you will be able to program skin cells to behave as eggs or sperm cells, and to combine them further in vitro and create new life. This would mean women can be having babies well after their menopause. Same-sex couples might be able to use their own genetic material to create babies of their own. People who went through cancer, women who went through cancer and they don't have any fertile capabilities anymore, still they would be able to have babies. So the whole landscape of bringing new life into this world will change. The age of when you're capable to do so will change dramatically. Of course, with a lot of ethical and dilemmas and technical issues that might go wrong. But boom, a new way of making babies would of course change society and families and mothers and fathers and so on. So given how much people tend to, at least in Western society, tend to postpone having children, people are very different in generations. They get married later, they have children later. All these sorts of artificial reproductive technologies will allow people to push this even more. Again, invites a question: why are we pushing it so more? Why are we afraid of, or not afraid, why are we avoiding bringing new life? What are the social and economic conditions that are making young people be very afraid to have children and so on? So it's a very socioeconomic discussion as well around reproduction. It's always been. Reproduction is very political. Yeah. It's not just an individual issue. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so just because I'm trying to be considerate of your time, and I know I've kept you very long already, I will try to go a bit faster through the second group.
Don't worry.
Okay, so we're merging technological stuff with...
I'm sorry because I'm all the time interrupting you, but...
No, I deal very well with that. I enjoy it, don't worry. So here we have a number of things. First comes from exoskeletons. While there has been huge progress in prosthetics and exoskeletons for allowing formerly paralyzed people or that have different atrophies in their muscles to be able to walk and touch again, of course, this will get better and better. Exoskeletons still look a bit robotic. They are activated by muscle power, but they will be very similar to skin. They will be very close and tight and natural looking, so you'll not feel Robocop while wearing one. They will be in a neurofeedback loop with your nervous system. So they will be so intimately, the scenario says, they will be so intimately connected to your body that they will prolong active life a lot. Imagine senior citizens having full capabilities, bodily speaking, being able to work, to play sports. It will change dramatically how the body tends to decay quite a lot towards the last section of our lives. And the discussion in this scenario, it's also that probably the technological competition will be so big between the players that some of these exoskeletons, the basic versions of them, will be quite affordable also. As any other, any other aids that we have, the glasses, the hearing aids, all sorts of things that after they progressed, they were very expensive at the beginning, but then pretty democratic, so to say. And this technology might change a lot how senior years look like if you're able to move and to work and to be active until very late. Of course, creating again divides, as you said, at the beginning when the price will still be high, when the resistance will still be strong. Some people will try them on first, and then the follow-up will come quite later. This one, hyperconnected, talks about brain-computer interfaces. Now, we already have them. I mean, there are already experiments with them in the medical realm and in the military, but the scenario talks about a very diverse use for brain-computer interfaces, especially in working environments where you work a lot with machines, with collaborative robots and so on. So if people have brain-machine interfaces and are able to directly control machines and robots in factories, in warehouses, in different semi-automatized environments, it will change a lot the way we interact with robotic or robotic collaborators in these environments. The question is that this will become, not the question, the ethical dilemma is, of course, that you can imagine already thousands of workers from vulnerable countries being wired up and being in the warehouse of Amazon and Alibaba, interacting with robots for the sake of all the others, stronger players. So I think it will create a new type of vulnerability. It's not that it's not who owns the brain-computer interface, but who owns, because of the increased, who benefits from the increased productivity that these interfaces will bring. Probably you will have armies of workers brain-wired to interact with machines and to build phones or whatever gadgets we will have 20 years from now. A new form of slavery, one might say, if some people will be heavily used in this kind of interaction. But of course, there will also be privileged people, middle management, executives of sorts that will use brain-machine interface to learn better, to be faster in different automatized tasks. I mean, there is always a layer of privilege where this technology is helping you learn better, work better. But for many, it will be a new form of slavery, probably. And lastly, in this category, and this is this one probably one of my favorite because it's so thought-provoking. Hive Minds discusses about how if we are able not only of brain-computer interfaces, but brain-to-brain communication, so another step, another leap forward in technological terms, so we can share thoughts, but not only thoughts, but also emotions, a radically honest version of our emotions. If you think about it, the way we share now emotions by facial cues, by we sweat or we blush when we are nervous, things like this. These are very rudimentary ways of communicating what we feel and very subjective in interpretation. If I look at you now, I'm like, is he bored? Is he excited? It's hard to tell sometimes, right? With people, a lot of this communication is guessing what the other feels. And then we have words and we express our emotions, but words are a very poor substitute for what we actually feel. We try to put in words very complicated feelings, right? Whereas if we were capable of sharing emotions directly, if I were able to feel your anxiety or your hope or even your falling in love with someone, that would be a very intimate connection that we would have among each other. And the scenario talks about these groups, networks, for example, people in a company or people in a family or couples that are so wired with each other through brain-to-brain interfaces and through emotion recognition technology, that the whole way we communicate, empathize with each other, work with each other would change by a huge order of magnitude. And I think this is the scenario that is most thought-provoking in what concerns this language of emotions. That's why I think it would be interesting if students read it, just to imagine a world where you can directly share emotions and directly share thoughts. Of course, also scary. A lot of our social apparatus works because we are able to lie to each other, to be diplomatic. Radical honesty is dangerous.
Yeah, I was thinking that the primary, what you said, that the primary way of showing what you feel is like, well, at least at the moment, we can't control. I mean, I would, when you were talking, I remember a meme I saw a couple of days ago, but I think it was somebody attending the coronation of Charles III,
Okay.
and he was like training the smile, somebody cut. He was like
this, like when you show your teeth.
I don't know if this is real, but it was in the coronation, and it was like, this guy is training the smile to say hi to the king,
To the king, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the guy was with a smile, but he you see the smile, but maybe he's excited, but actually he's bored,
Or nervous, or just polite, or
whatever, yeah. But this kind of implants or something are a bit scarring. No? It reminds me to this. It sounds so Orwellian, from Orwell.
Yeah, Orwellian, yeah.
This thought police. No, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of it. Was thought police. No, it was like it's like somebody may know what you are thinking in real time. This is like,
the security issues are huge, huge security issues. But the technology, I mean, and in any of these scenarios, and I know you understand me very well, there is a list of feasibility issues, like when will the technology be able to do that and that? Then there is a lot of regulation issues. How much states and will allow this to happen? Ethical issues galore. So just because technology shows a sign that it could go somewhere, it doesn't mean it will. It doesn't mean we should let it go. And it doesn't mean there will not be a huge reaction if experiments with this prove wrong. So again, caution in any of this. And lastly, the last category about how we build better models and simulations of how we work. And here I will go faster because these two are maybe connected. We talk about digital body twin, how you put sensor everywhere, be them on the body or implantable. You build in time a better and better model of how your physiological processes work. You have a huge database of how other bodies work. You have some reference point on what is healthy for your age, your height, your whatever gender. And medicine would change dramatically if you can use the model of the body to test different medical hypotheses and so on, and act and give advice to the person. For example, the sensors would notice the level of tiredness in your muscles, and they would advise you not to go hiking, or they would alarm you that you might have a heart attack if you keep smoking because you are already, I don't know. So it would be a very real-time feedback that you have from your body, which is also as great as it sounds, because you will have a much more competent understanding of how your body works. All sorts of questions arise, as in, do I really want to know how my body is doing every day? Do I want to have such a good knowledge of where my body is failing? Do I want to live with this constant notification about how my body is performing? this can create a lot of anxiety and pressure about our own bodies. But of course, it can also improve dramatically the kind of personalized medical services that we might get. And in the more complicated realm of the brain, building a mirror of the brain is also tremendously complicated. But the technology that we looked at suggests, let me move this here, suggests that we will be able to scan the physical structure of the brain in different portions and also the functions that are supported by that structure, and to use this scanning to upload it on a digital support and have a model of the brain. Again, given how little we know up to this day about how the brain works, there will be probably many iterations and many years ahead into exploration how the brain works before we're able to create this. But it would change a lot on how we do, on how we test cognitive science, how we can test drugs for mental illnesses and all sorts of things. So it would be truly revolutionary, but as with all the other things, also scary and with different levels of problematic and ethical issues. I have one more and then I'm done. Whoops, what did I do? Double Life talks about how we will create digital immersive worlds, be them like games, fantasy games, or they can be mirror worlds of the actual world. Like you can make a simulation world that is exactly like your life at university or life with your spouse and your father and mother-in-law, so the family. But this idea of creating virtual worlds like or metaverses, of course, it's very popular already particularly because some companies are bragging that they will do that. With what success, it's still to be seen. But the fact that some people might feel more real and authentic in what we used to, it's not online anymore, right? It's completely immersive, virtual. But some people might feel more at home there than in the world. Some people feel very estranged and lonely in the physical world. Isolation is growing, human relationships are deteriorating. So it could be that for some groups of people, particularly young people who spend anyway a lot of time in virtual worlds, this will be the home. This will be where you try romance, where you try, to make your presence in the world, and less so in the physical. I remember I read at some point an article about, and I think you know this phenomenon about Japanese teenagers who refuse to go outside of the house. And they spend years almost confined in their bedrooms.
I think Hikimori or something like this, the name, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So there are signs. I mean, it's not so ridiculous for us to imagine that this kind of groups that feel very estranged already from the physical world will migrate almost completely into fantasy or mirror worlds and take all their emotions from there. I don't know if this resonates with you or you think it's possible.
Yeah, no, I was checking the name in English of a movie because while I was hearing you, I was just writing some science fiction movies that remember to every scenario. It's something interesting, like but yes, this is happening, and this is I think this is going to be real soon. I mean, totally. Because
it's very tempting, I think, to protect yourself from the physical world, from all the cruelty and the loneliness and the.
Yeah, we are in the first stages. No, we don't have this. As you say, this is going to be a totally immersive or total immersive experience. At the moment, it's just partial. No, it's online, as you said, because for example, we some students of mine have been with the research project for the grade thesis, for example. They have been researching about the alter egos, no, the people is building in the social networks, no. I mean, not only Facebook or Twitter, maybe less, but for example, all these dating apps, no, like Tinder and Bumble and everything is like, you know, it's like building a different. It's like living for a while
as a persona, as a different character. Yeah,
different persona. Yeah. So, and all of them, they are playing the same game. No? I mean, not all of them, but many people. No, it's
but
like
many. Yeah.
It's like a kind of if being optimistic, or it will be something like you can be whoever you want for a while, no? Even virtually, you know. So yeah.
Indeed.
Even you are lying, maybe, but
you can try that persona for a while. Yeah. I think for some, it will be a way to be more honest. You are in a virtual world. Nobody can touch you or harm you. So some might become more authentic, and some will become more deceitful and create a character that is not at all very true to themselves. You will have all sorts of behaviors, a lot of deceit and lying about who you are, for sure. But also many people probably will be more daring and more authentic because they're not so fragile like they are in the physical world. You can play out your sexual fantasies. You can engage in a different the kind of life that you cannot have in the physical world. So it can be liberating, but it can also be very toxic and creating characters that are fake completely.
Yeah, I was thinking in Total Recall. Do you remember?
Total Recall. Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, I found it. Yes, it is like
some of these.
I'm going for holidays but I'm in my chair and I'm traveling and I'm living experience. I'm not able to in my real life. But what is real? It's like everything is about perception. So it's like
What is real?
It's very interesting, even at therapeutical level, no? Because it's like dreaming, but without sleeping. You know, it's like if
lucid dreaming.
Yeah, it's like if you are living these experiences, then it is having a real impact on you, on your, I mean, a physical level. Even maybe you can get older because you have been suffering a lot, even virtually.
Yeah, you're right.
While reading your scenarios, I thought that it's sometimes this you can compare with this. I don't know in English. It's somatization. I mean, it's like
somatization. Yeah.
No, and then it's like you have this problem in mind, and at the end you experience it physically.
Yeah.
So it's perception is affecting your mental.
You're right. So you're not totally freed up from the physical and flesh and body, because if I understand correctly, your life in the virtual world will affect you on a very bodily level, and
you can traumatize. Yeah, you can get sick. Yeah, of course, or be happy. It depends. So I think it can be a lot of different uses. I mean,
it's very varied.
It's like always is about perception. You know, this is what because consciousness. I was checking the meaning this morning, like, you know, when I'm a bit lost, I go to the dictionary. No, it's like, what's the meaning? Or the original meaning of the words, you know, and I found that consciousness is about perception. No, I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's about perception, no? And it's like what you perceive is the way it's affecting you.
It's
it only changed the way, you know. It's like for example, the first scenario you were, or group of scenarios, I was thinking in a more basic way of intervening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
on perception, like more like kind of, I don't know, orange clockwork or something like this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
stimulus, no? It's like, and for the second, I was thinking, of course, Matrix or Blade Runner, or, you know, more,
Yeah,
more,
that kind of simulation worlds.
more about the hardware, no? And this is more,
Yeah.
this is more about the software. I mean, like, you know, about the, you know, the way
Yeah,
of management.
I see your parallel indeed. Those are simulated worlds, like the Matrix, and these are and these also are simulation worlds, but some of them, as you say, even if the world is virtual or completely simulated, it does affect you as an embodied person. We cannot escape this support system that we have. This scenario deals with death, and I think it became very relevant as a subject to me in during the pandemic, when many people lost families and friends in a setting that didn't allow them to even, you know, make a proper memorial and the rituals that all people have around death. And the grief process was very strange because you didn't have access to the person who is ill. They called you from the hospital. So we had this couple of years were a very, very rough experience with departure and with saying goodbye to the loved ones. And this scenario talks about how there are already such individuals and communities that experience with this, which is you create a virtually deceased person. This is in technological terms, it's a deep fake. So it's a computer-generated persona that learns to speak and to laugh and to imitate the behavior of your loved one, the one who has passed away. And some people choose to keep them close because they are still grieving and they cannot let go. Some people want to remember periodically not only the voice of a person, but the way they responded. I mean, the sweet, you know, very intimate interaction you have, the kind of conversations you have. So it's a memory reenactment. And for some, I think it helps them even, you know, people lose other people and they regret that they didn't have some very hard conversations with them when they had to, right? Like we lose our parents and sometimes and we realize, wow, I haven't even talked for real with my father or my mother in 15 years. I wasn't honest. We were just talking about the weather or whatever. This kind of frustrations that people have. And I think some of them feel that if they keep this virtually deceased person next to them, they at least can let go from their own soul of some of the difficult conversations or hear their voice and slowly say goodbye to a person rather than bam, it's death, it's burial, and it's a memory. This, I think it's a very big transformation that is very likely. The technology is here. It's very doable today.
Yeah, we have this, yeah, I was thinking on this movie, Hair, you know, this, for example, it's like, yes, it's like, yeah, when you are unable to find a physical person, I mean, then you can get a software's girlfriend or something, you know, which is analyzing you, which is I mean, the algorithms
learning about you,
from you, what you need, and you know, and it's and the big question again or challenge is like maybe this could be better than a real person. I mean, would be a real option for anybody. And
this
yes,
what you say now
yeah. Sorry?
about her. No, sorry, you finish and I'll tell you afterwards.
Oh no, I was thinking out loud, like Hair, for example. I think this is interesting for the students because in the movies you can find in science fiction it's more easygoing to. I mean, the scenarios, no, that they are introducing are accessible and easy to understand, no. I mean, and science fiction always was connected to to FOReSiGHT or to future studies, no? Since Jules Verne, no? He was in touch with the scientists and everything. And I would, I think it would be interesting also. And this chapter of San Juniper of the Black Mirror series.
What's it called, the chapter?
Junipero, San Juniper. These two guys living in the 90s forever, you know, who are, the consciousness is
it's stuck in the past.
Yeah, they are getting old and they finally die, but they decide to keep on living, I mean, in the 90s. So it's like the consciousness is still working, but then it's almacenada. It's like they put it in machine, you know, like this. So
almacenada, you would say. Okay, I'm learning Spanish words. But you know, Black Mirror has an episode exactly more close to this, which is a woman loses her boyfriend and she makes a computer-generated version of him. Of course, Black Mirror makes him into a robot, so it's also touchable and huggable, not just a voice. But there is an episode exactly on this. Someone dies and you recreate them, hoping that you can still cling to that relationship. Of course, delusional in many ways.
Yeah, this is something that is already happening, I think, because if the students are interested in, they can search by their own. But for example, now in the music industry, I know some people working there, and they are very like interested on these kind of things, because for example, these holograms, no, the first holograms, like 15 years ago, something like this, of the very first ones were used for a live performance of Tupac, no? This rapper.
Yeah, exactly. The holograms of Tupac, appearing in concerts and
how many years after he died, and at that moment, the holograms, it's in YouTube. You can, no, the students can search for this. The video is in YouTube, and it's very realistic, but it still was a work in progress, no? But then 5 years ago, was using it with the students. Whitney Houston, they started with a project. I don't know if it was the record company of Whitney Houston started with a project to plan some gigs all around the world using this hologram.
Wow, like a world tour.
Yeah, but much better than the Tupac, of course, because now, and now, you know, this Swedish band ABBA, no, they are also used, no,
very famous, of course.
Yeah, they are planning, or they are not, I don't know if they started, but they were planning a tour, but they are not playing in the tour. It's and if you combine the holograms with artificial intelligence, I mean, Tupac was not able to interact.
Exactly. He was just a shadow there.
But imagine that, you know, now the holograms are so realistic that you have to, you know, it's like you have to go and make like this to realize if it's real or not, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's in 3D is perfect, almost perfect. But imagine that this image interacting with the crowd in, I don't know, whatever, Lollapalooza or whatever, you know?
Yeah. The huge stadiums,
You can say,
it can be very, very real,
This is crazy. I have some clients and friends in, for example, this music industry, in the creative industries, like music, or also cinema, film industry. It's like, and we are all frequently discussing these kinds of things because they are very interested. Like maybe in 10 years, 15 years, you can get James Dean back to life, you know?
You know, the youth will not know who James Dean is, but some other generations will be very happy to see James Dean again.
You can use James Dean as a new thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Or or you can make music. Yeah, it's like Chat GPT-3 is now doing this. No, this is also a big issue now. It's like how for example Kurt Cobain from Nirvana would make this song.
Yeah,
And these
yeah.
algorithms are populating. This is crazy, but it's very very exciting. No, interesting. Yeah. No,
I think
I'm
especially for artists or thinkers or spiritual leaders, imagine if you can bring into a conference someone who speaks like a. So this might be very stimulating to bring the legacy of the smartest, the most talented people, and have this generation be able to get in contact with that.
Yeah. It's a bit it's a bit strange it would be, but for example, having I don't know Albert Einstein in class explaining the relativity theory and discussing with the students for a while. No? I think I'm telling these examples because I think it's interesting to realize that it's not science fiction, it's happening already. So we are still in the early stages. No?
Yes. Some of these are already happening, and some probably will be stopped by regulation. But some are more innocent or more doable already. And since you discussed Her, which is a very, very special movie for many people, I think it was a very beautiful and endearing exploration of how we develop emotions even for artificial intelligence or for artificial agents. This last one discusses about how if the AI will become better at simulating human consciousness and sentience, even if scientists don't agree at all on what's the likelihood that AI will have its own consciousness, it will have this property, or it will be sentient. This is very divisive in the community. However, for sure, AI will get better and better at simulating one, at giving the impression that they are thinking with you, they are talking to you, they are feeling, empathizing, and so on. So if we accept this hypothesis that they will be better at faking consciousness, we will have more people falling in love, like in Her, or having friends. For example, not quite recently, but in the pandemic, I read the last novel of Ishiguro's called Clara and the Sun, who talks about this girl who is very frail and she has an illness. I cannot remember what kind of illness, but her mother gets her a companion robot. And she spends these formative years, pre-adolescent years, growing with this robot that is paying super close attention to this girl. You know, it's the perfect observant of her behavior, the perfect pattern recognizer of her mental habits and her emotional outbursts. And that robot becomes such a obvious member of the family that when they will be grieved like they like someone died when the robot is ending for whatever reason, or is going broken, or who knows what. I think there will be real grief for people who have grown a relationship with that kind of companion. And this goes for friendship, romance, sexual stuff. I mean, it will be used, as you can imagine, therapy, life coaches of all sorts. So I think this is very radical, even if we don't buy the idea that AI will have its own consciousness for real. Yeah, but if it can fake it, people want to talk to someone, they don't think so much about the science behind it. The same with the generative models like ChatGPT. No one has the time. I mean, no one, by large, people don't go into the hard science behind the things. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So I think what we saw in Her and with this I close, will happen in real life quite a lot, when we will hear people suffering out of love for a robot.